Hello, everybody. Around 2 years ago, I made a video called Secrets You Missed in the Zootopia 2 trailer. There was no trailer. It was 2 years ago. I was lying. But, things happened to find a way to come full circle, and I actually watched the movie, and I want to give a review on it because all the other reviews I saw gave really surface level commentary like, oh, Disney makes bad movies, but this one isn't as bad. I'm like, okay, well, way to get into it. So there will be spoilers, and I want to go deep into the plot of this movie. If you haven't seen it, I'll catch you up. It's Nick and Judy are basically, they're partners now after the first movie. It's either directly after or a couple months after. We don't know. The time frame is actually going to be something else I talk about. And what happens is they're kind of not working together. They're like put at risk of being split apart because they like fail a mission. And then they get like roped into a bigger plot about Zootopia having a 100-year anniversary. And this 100-year anniversary is to celebrate, hey, Zootopia was created 100 years ago. What are we going to do about it? And apparently reptiles have always been outlawed from Zootopia because, I don't know, just never been there. And everyone like hates them. They're like, oh, reptiles, we don't like those kind. Oh, they're slithery and stuff. And they have venom. And it's like, okay, we'll get into the cons of that idea later. But, that's this premise. And that these lynxes, which are the people who live in the Arctic, they're like cat-like creatures who stole power from them. The main idea is that the snakes are trying to prove, hey, we're not the bad guys. We got set up and framed, and then our land got taken. And then Nick and Judy have to fix that. Main plot idea. So what I think is good, we'll start off with the pros, go to the cons. I'll say the good thing is the idea itself. It's a good idea. It's a warranted sequel that provides on top of the first movie. It's like good that, it was made. There seems to be a purpose and direction. And the direction's good. I think really the ideas they had here were well thought out and well done. Next, I would say it did follow a formula where like the opening scene highlights that there's imperfections in Nick and Judy's them as cops and stuff. Oh, here are the lynxes, by the way. Anyways, moving on. Yeah, and then they fail and they're at risk, and then they have to try to they just get pulled into the plot, so they can't actually address their problems with one another, and it gets to a climax where they have to split off and learn about themselves, and then when they come back together, they fix it. And you know what that leads to another pro is that there's character development in this movie. The characters actually grow accustomed and make decisions that make them better, because the first movie is about Judy like just being herself, right? And Nick kind of had some character development. He's like, all right, I'm not going to be a scumbag who scams people with popsicles. Not really a lot, but, he got his fair share, essentially. But now it's like both characters are actually, coming together and doing things. I would say the biggest pro, though, is the world building. Man, they take you to so many cool places through the marsh biome, like the club with the reptiles and stuff. And, like, they have to go into like a desert wall. It's genuinely S tier that there's more world building, there's more Zootopia lore. That's like really good. And I would say another thing is that all the extra gags and ideas that were in this movie, like everything they packed up, there was a lot of Easter eggs. There was a lot of jokes that adults could pick up on, and I would say that was really good. There was a lot of ideas. There was a lot of good. I feel it was super packed, but that also is a double-edged sword, as in there's problems with that. And the last good thing was that Pawble was a twist villain. So Pawble is like one of like the outcat, so the Lynx is a family. They're like the snow leopard cat family that are evil. And they're kind of like, it's kind of obvious, not to everybody, but only to Nick and Judy that they're evil. But Judy meets one nice one, like early on in the movie. I would call him Pawble. And Pawble helps, Judy, Pawble, and the snake Gary. Gary was in the fucking trailer, so if you don't know about Gary, then I don't know what to tell you. But he's trying to uphold his Gary's trying to fix the wrongs. Pawble, he's just a good guy, I guess, and then Judy's there. But Pawble ended up being a twist villain in this movie, and I think that's actually really good. I did not see that coming whatsoever. Is it like the same as the first movie that there's a lamb and there was a twist villain? Yes, but I didn't expect it, so I'd say that's good. Now let's move on to the bad. Their bad is like twice as long as the good, but it's a review, so why not? I would still say I'll give my final rating at the end, and I'll piece it together and what I could take away. But for the bad, I would say the character development is formulaic, as I stated before. And at the end, they don't really like fix their problems in like an overtime learning way. It's more like they just trauma dump on each other at the very end. And then like, all right, I guess everything's good now. No, that's like, That's such a like a therapy talk way to go about it. That's not how characters should resolve their issues, and it's just bad. It's just not how you do that. And the second thing is like the double-edged sword about all the extra gags and ideas. There was a lot of ideas, but in the end, it being too packed for its runtime. And the reason it's too packed is for the biggest negative of all. It's pacing. The pacing is god awful. The movie goes way too fast, like really fast. The movie is like, it's like a speeding scene. It's like really, really fast. I would say you can't really understand anything. And constantly during the movie, I had to had to half guess the plot, And each scene I had to half guess, like, wait, what do the characters learn, What's going on? Why do they have to go to the next place? It's like all this, you're not going to process that in like quickly, right? But instead, what the movie does is the movie just goes so fast through everything. And it's kind of vague about things at the beginning too, at least, until it just dumps the information on you. It's like vague about like what's going on with the snake, what's going on with the leopard, why Judy and everybody are on the run from the cops, because the cops are like, wow, Judy bit someone with a snake or something. It's a misunderstanding. Like it's Judy and like everybody against them, so the cops are constantly chasing them, right? So they're fugitives of the law, Judy and Nick and whatnot. But I would say like, these are things that like make the movie like it makes the movie bad because we don't get to like get deep into like what the characters are thinking, what the characters are learning. They don't have time to like stop and think, give their opinions on everything that's happened. It's always like they're always cutting each other off. They're always going too fast. Sometimes you can see it in their expressions, but you don't have time to process a lot of these things. It's kind of like just a fast, swift experience. And I think that if it was either a 2-parter or a 3-hour movie, which kind of went slower and deeper into things, I think they would have had a lot of time to flesh out these ideas and execute them a lot better. But this is a kid's movie, so what do I know? All right, so because of the pacing, it messed all these other things up. I would say the villains. The villains are the Lynx family. They barely showed up. They were kind of threatening for the time they were there, but they barely showed up and they barely did anything. These like head Lynx people. They didn't have time to be villains. They didn't have time to oppose the characters. We didn't have time to learn about them or, not really sympathize, but at least understand them to any extent. The most we got was a line that said, hey, the Lynxes love to expand land. They're horny for it. I'm like, okay, good. At least they gave us that. It's better than nothing, but that's still pretty bad. Next is where we stood, like how much ground the protagonists were covering and giving them time to think. This is for viewers to process ideas. I kind of went over this. And I would say like, because it was fast, we don't catch everything at first, which is, it's good. Like sometimes a movie, you don't catch everything at first, right? But this is like too much we're skipping over, there's a point that you can get to and then it's like, okay, I'm missing way too much and it's becoming semi-hard to follow. And the last thing is what I said, giving characters real development and thinking time. They rush place to place and they do thing to thing. And I could literally describe the movie as one giant chase scene and it doesn't feel like an actual movie. And now where I go kind of deeper into it, which is beyond these like surface level, and I guess they would say these are kind of deep observations about, the plot and whatnot, and like characteristics of what makes a movie good. But specific to this movie, there are plot holes, which I wanted to talk about. So the first big plot hole is, so Pawble wanted to, so the only way that Judy could like uphold the snakes, their dynasty, their legacy, is by finding a piece of paper that said, hey, the real person who made the weather building machine was not this Lynx guy. It was a female grandma snake. All right, and she did. And she hid it in like the old town. And, Pawble knew about this. Pawble is the traitor son, the quote unquote traitor son of the Lynxes, who you think is good, but then he's twistful and he's like, I'm actually just fucking evil. I don't care about you, Judy, and whatnot. So, the thing is, when it like comes down to that, right? Why didn't Pawble just tell his family to burn the paper? Because at a certain point in the movie, the head Father Lynx is like, hey, I know where they're going. They're gonna go find the deed by uncovering the secret snake town that we took land over for. Oh, big plot point. Sorry, I forgot to mention it. What the Lynxes did is after they took over, like they were like, hey, we built the machines. We're the godsends of Zootopia. We're kind of like the creators. They also just took the snakes like town and covered it with snow. And it's just in their territory now. And they were going to do a second expansion and take over the marsh world. but I guess some few amount of reptiles were hiding out, which are the outlaws essentially. But yeah, the marsh town where all the seals and stuff are, very cool setting, but apparently the lynxes want to take that over with their snow and just covered in snow. So the thing is, yeah, why didn't Pablo just, tell his family, hey, the note is still there, the deed is still there. Why don't we burn it so that no one can do it? Because this snake is trying to come here, right? Instead of what Pablo did, opposed to that, is he smuggled the snake in. He smuggled it to steal the book that the lynxes already had. This is the book that proves the book is essentially what the lynxes already have in the beginning of the story. It's the key that the grandma snake wrote to like her town, so that if anyone wanted to find the real deed that she hid, they could find it. Okay, but the lynx were hiding it because they were like, oh, no one should know the location of this thing. And it was passed down from generation to generation, essentially. And the latest generation even knew that there was a map to this was essentially a quote unquote map to where to find the real deed to who made the weather machines to create Zootopia. So who was the real creators of Zootopia? So, all the keys were in their hands, essentially. The guy had the knowledge and they had the book. And it turns out the snake's territory was territory that they already took over in the Arctic. So it was already in the Arctic. So the question beckons, why the hell did he have to go out of his way to bring the snake in, steal the book, bring Judy and Nick into it, and just make it such a convoluted mess? Pawble didn't have to do all this. Because they had the book, which was the map to, the location, which had the deed, that they could have just burned away, because the deed wasn't burned originally. Also another, contrivance. And, yeah. And two, the second big plot hole, I guess I can go into 1.5. 1.5 plot hole is Judy and Nick are protagonists, and there's a lot of things that shouldn't go their way, but it goes their way because they're the protagonists. And they're very lucky. This is in every, I guess should be in every kid's movie, but I guess, yeah, they're way too lucky. Not a lot of it, I wouldn't say most of it I would say is in their ability, that they're good cops and whatnot. But a lot of it, I would say there's a decent amount that's okay, they're just lucky. All right. Not a lot of cut holes, but Judy should be hurt, Nick should be hurt, but they're not because, they're really strong for these tiny ass animals. Not really the case, but, well, who am I to judge a cartoon movie, right? So the second giant plot hole is, why the hell did the lynxes do this land expansion and cover it up? All right. So I told you, the lynxes took the snake's hometown. They didn't, this is something they stood to gain. They kicked all the snakes out. They made them look bad. This is 100 years ago, by the way. And now in the present day, it turns out what they did with that land was nothing. They just covered it with snow. So my point is, why didn't they renovate the land that they gained? They're about to do another expansion, right? That's one of the threatening things of the modern time is 100 years later, they want to do another expansion of the Arctic. And it beckons the question, what's the point of taking another expansion if all they're going to do is just cover up the marsh with snow? Do they have a plan? Because the first time they actually took land, it was just an empty mountain, and they just covered up the tiny town. And they did not renovate it. They didn't do anything. They didn't use the infrastructure they had. They just covered it up, dude. What's the point of the second one? Are you just going to take more land and cover it up with snow and be like, no one's going to live there or do anything. We're just going to cover it up for no reason. And it all spirals back to the stupid idea the minxes want more territory. For what purpose? They're not even doing anything with it. This is something that maybe could be explored if the movie had more time, but it just didn't. So it's what the fuck? What's the point? These villains actually have no motive. That's a big plot hole. Another one actually stems from a world building issue. I know I said world building was S tier, but at a certain point, there's actually some flaws in it. So the question is, where did the snakes go? So we don't learn shit about the snake Gary, his family, anyone, any snakes, essentially. We only see Gary as the only snake that exists. And maybe there's no other fucking snakes. It's just Gary, right? And that beckons the question, 100 years ago when all the snakes had to move out, where did they move to? Now, obviously, Zootopia is essentially a planet, right? So let me see if I can find something that, not really. None of these pictures really help. All right, well, the point is, Zootopia, it's kind of like a city. And around it's probably outskirts, right? So maybe the snakes moved to one of these outskirts, how now Judy used to live in a different place before she came to Zootopia. The snakes lived in their own, they live in their own new place now. And the point is, if the snakes just live in their own place, what's the point of them needing their own spot in Zootopia now? What's the point? I guess for Gary, yes, it makes sense. Like his grandma lived there with all the other reptiles, and there's a secret reptile land, right? That makes sense, right? But for all these other snakes, dude, it's like it's such an irrelevant thing for them. It's so irrelevant. I guess Gary's just kind of spiteful. Like like we don't know anything about him, so he could just be living with his family at like his new home and know the story of his grandmother. Like, oh, his grandmother lived in Zootopia. She used to live there, but then she's dead. But now all the snakes live in this separate spot, and they don't give a shit now because they haven't done anything in 100 years, right? So it's like, why the hell did Gary want to go back now and be like, wait, I want to avenge it? Like, we don't learn jack shit about this character. We don't learn if he wants to avenge her for what reason, because it creates this plot hole that there was genuinely probably no reason he had to go back. Like, if the snakes are rejected by society, they've been doing it for 100 years. What's the point of them going back? Because they probably already found somewhere else to live that isn't Zootopia. Like, he has no motive whatsoever, essentially. Like, even if they stated, hey, wait, the motive is Gary just wants to say that his grandma did it to get justice. Sure, there's that, but like they kind of make it look like they want to bring reptiles back into Zootopia. Why? The reptiles already have some place to live. And this also plays back into the 100-year gap. So during this 100-year gap, dude, when the lynxes like said, hey, we did Zootopia, why did all these reptiles not like advocate diplomatically that, hey, wait a second, like something's wrong here? Essentially we aren't like the bad guys, because the reason they got the reptiles out of Zootopia, like the lynxes were able to convince everyone, is because the reptile bit like a turtle that the lynxes actually killed. No reptile bit a turtle, right? So why couldn't they be like, wait a second, she was killed by some other reason, right? I mean, like we weren't the ones who did that, right? And the thing is, it stems to another giant issue, which is they're saying like snakes and reptiles entirely got outlawed because of one murder. Think about this. This is Zootopia, dude. Like, in Zootopia, there's lions, dude. There's lions. There was the entire predator problem, like Emmett Otterton and all the other in Zootopia 1. You're telling me no one's ever killed someone before? Well, what happens if a lion kills someone? Do they just have to get rid of all the lions? No, because there's still lions in the thing in Zootopia. And it's like, okay, if one lion is a bad actor, don't they just lock up the lion and then they're like, all right, the rest of the lions can still be here? Or like an elephant steps on a mouse, right? Then can't they all just still be there? Why the hell is it that when one snake like is framed, it doesn't even kill somebody? The snakes do nothing to stand up, and the entire population of snakes and reptiles just get kicked out of Zootopia. That makes no sense. Can't they do something diplomatic about this, right? So that's like a really big issue that it comes back from. Like there is this nice overarching bigger idea, right, that they could have played into and developed with these motives. Like, oh, why does Gary actually want to go back? Because the snakes have somewhere to live outside of Zootopia, and what's the point, right? But they don't have time to do this. They don't have time to do this because it's like paced really fast and it's packed up. I'm not saying like the movie is filled with something that that should be removed in place of these things. The movie actually is very essential. I'm just saying the movie should be longer. There needs to be more, essentially. Otherwise, it just becomes like not really deep. There's not a big message, and there's just all these plot holes that just stood in the back of my mind all movie. And one of the last things is like the timing inconsistency. So apparently, like when one of the scenes, like like the mob boss Italian tiny guy, Mr. Big, his daughter apparently had a granddaughter. But in the same time frame, that makes it seem like the time frame of this movie is like a couple months after. They did the big lamb bust, I'll call it. That's the first movie, the lamb bust. But in terms of like how the movie presents itself, it's like it's the day after the lamb bust, essentially, and everybody still treats Nick and Judy as rookies, not as like professionals who are like, wait a second, Judy did something great. No, it's like, oh, Judy, you're still such an inexperienced cop, you still suck, blah 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 blah, and now you're a traitor. The entire world turned on her, instead of anyone actually like being like, hey, wait, this bunny cop who did something so good for like our Zootopia, uncovering this conspiracy, if she's like thinking about something else, or she's talking about some like other second conspiracy that like she found a reptile or something, why the hell is no one believing her, or at least giving her the time of day to talk about it? Why is she still in the same place from the first movie? It's because they just want to make the cops the bad guys, which makes sense. I guess that was a good part, but they could have been a better way to get there than just being like that. And the other thing is, because of this like timing inconsistency, it's just like when is the movie actually, like we don't really know. So I guess that really wraps up the cons. So when it comes to the pros and the cons, I said there was a good idea, but due to the pacing and the overwhelming amount of ideas. Like I would have actually liked that they went for something more complex opposed to simple and could be done in 1 hour 50 minutes. I really like the ambition of this movie. It was good ambition, but the point is, if they can't deliver on that, then it's kind of like leaves you like half-assed. Like, oh, you kind of like wish that they did it right. So it really comes together in that way, and that's where I put the good and bad together. There's really good ideas, but in terms of execution, it was not delivered to the best extent. Creating a full experience. That's why people give this movie like a 7 out of 10. That was one of the reviews I saw. Someone gave it a 7 out of 10 because it was I don't know, probably because it wasn't the best thing ever. I think the best thing ever, a 10 out of 10 would have been great in execution, probably longer movie. Though no one would want to watch a 2 hour Disney, like 2 hour, like 3 hour Disney movie. So probably have to be Zootopia 2 plus 3. But nobody actually also wants to watch like these 2-parter movies. So maybe they could have just made it a 3 hour Zootopia movie. Who knows? They could have gone baller they could have gone out. It is hard, but then I would say essentially the idea is you should just scale the movie down. This is ideally like from Disney's viewpoint what they should have done. But for what a viewer, I think I would have I like all the ideas that they brought up. It could just been a 3 hour movie, and I would have been like, why the hell is Zootopia 2 3 hours? I watch it, I'm like, wow, this is really good, and everybody else is really good. It's like that. But overall, when I have to come down to giving it a rating, I would have to give it probably like a 7.2 out of 10. Is what I'm kind of lining into. And you're like, 7.2, what the heck, 72%? Is there some meaning behind this? No, there's no meaning behind it. I'm just love the decimal point for no reason, and that's honestly it. So if anybody else had any interesting thoughts about Zootopia 2, anything I missed, I hope I explained the plot well. I feel like I kind of went out of order because I just saw the movie, and I kind of missed some things because there's so much to process. That like when it comes down to explaining the plot like in a spoiler way and not just like going by the story beats, it's really hard to explain everything all at once. So I apologize for missing some things, but yeah, it was a interesting movie. I would say it makes me wish it was better done. So maybe if they it beckons the question that that'll end the video on, is like, if there was a Zootopia 3, would I watch it? Because it would be its own idea, and I'd be like, I don't know if I'd like watch it or enjoy it as much now that they're like, if they tried to do a Zootopia 3, you know what I mean? Because I feel like, I don't know, it seems like it's hard to know where to go. They can't just follow the same thing by world building again and like all that. But like a part of this amazement is also like things that I really liked in the first movie, So it's like, how much longer can they play this game of like, this is Zootopia, blah, blah, blah. Like, look at how cool the animals and stuff are. Like, it worked 2 times. I don't think it'll work like 3 times though. All right, thanks for watching.